I think that a lot of this goes back to, we obviously like to blame David Cameron. We say he made this terrible decision, the referendum was worded incredibly poorly. You compare it to the wording of, for instance, the Quebec referendum decades ago. It had 120, 130 words. This had like 10 or 11 words. Was it binding? Was it advisory? We know, generally speaking, the rhetoric around it, clearly it was binding, but also within the British system, it was never necessarily binding. And this speaks to a crisis, again, I'll go back to this crisis within the Conservative Party, of whether or not you are for representative democracy or direct democracy. Now, as Vince says, we do have a representative democratic system. I also think there are significant failings with it, but that's what we have. And if the Lib Dems got 400 seats the next election, and then they said we're going to revoke Article 50, our system means that is entirely legitimate because they have a democratic mandate to do that. I don't think it's necessarily politically wise. That's a separate conversation. And I think this collapse, and it is a collapse of conservative ideology we're seeing right now, and I think it was always inherent within Thatcherism, is really also to be understood as simultaneous with the collapse of the British state and the collapse of the Westminster model. And this all sounds very dramatic, doesn't it? But basically it's saying, you're the Conservative Party, what do you conserve? You attack the judges. You attack Westminster. You've been talking about parliamentary sovereignty for 15 years in the European Parliament, Nigel Farage, and now you're saying you want Parliament to be prorogued. And there's a clear historical inconsistency here about what they actually want. And the problem for the rest of us is we have to address this strange ideological conflict within the right in this country, which is a problem for socialists, it's a problem for liberals. I suspect we're going to have to work together. So far, the evidence isn't good.
Actually, it's not bad when you think what Parliament's achieved with the cross-party working.
That's absolutely
anti-no
true.
deal.
That's absolutely true. But what I would say to Vince, I've agreed with him so far, what I would say is, and he was talking about PR and reform of the House of Lords, I want all those things too. And when Joe Swinson says, I can't work with Jeremy Corbyn, I think, what do the Lib Dems actually want? If I was a passionate Lib Dem, and they do exist, I'm not going to say, they do. It's a very real political tradition. It does. The liberalism, yellow book liberalism in this country goes back 100 years. It's as old as socialism, right? And I think they're two sides of the same coin. But if you want PR, and if you want an elected House of Lords, and if you want to have, get rid of things like royal prerogative powers, etc., then you're going to have to work with Labour. You're going to have to work with Labour. And I think this political attitude of just kind of dismissing Jeremy Corbyn, dismissing Labour, I'll be frank, Jeremy Corbyn has problems. Unless there's a Labour government, and I think only Jeremy Corbyn would be politically ambitious enough to do this, we will never have a more democratic voting system in this country. So for Liberal Democrats, and I believe you're entirely sincere when you say you want a more democratic system, for Liberal Democrats to attack that very same leader, we have a historical opportunity to renew this country's democracy, renew its politics, and renew faith in politics.
Do you think Labour would actually bring in PR? I mean, they've never had that in a manifesto before.
With pressure. Pressure. Of course they would. It's like anything with politicians. I'm of the school that 95% of politicians are in it for themselves. But they have to respond. Often they start with good intentions. They respond to pressure. And that's just, they need to be re-elected, etc. So, and that's where the Liberal Democrats would come in. So we would support you in confidence and supply and play real hardball, not like 2010. We will support you with real confidence and supply if you scrap the House of Lords and we have PR. And that's actually to their long-term benefit too, because they get more MPs. But I don't see it. And just as there's an absence of longer-term strategy with Labour, and I'm happy to say that's the case, it seems to me there's also an absence of long-term strategy for Liberal Democrats in responding to this crisis of right-wing politics in the British state. Because yes, of course, talk about Brexit, it's a huge issue. But what happened to those conversations about parliamentary reform, about the breakdown of the Westminster system, about radical federalism for Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland? I'm not seeing it, and that's concerning for me.
For more debates, talks and interviews, subscribe today to the Institute of Art and Ideas at IAI TV.